the New York Knicks. I'm back, rocking in New York. Well, it's the Knicks. New York. We are the New York Knicks. New Yorkers. For this new season we're about to enter, the Knicks is taking no shorts, just like winter. New York, New York.
New York be about the Knicks, huh?
But the best thing about New York City is
K-N-I-C-K-S.
Everybody say go New York, go New York, go!
Hey everybody, welcome to the New York Knicks podcast, episode 462, part of the Almighty Baller Podcast Network and Dash Radio. I am Jay. How you doing, Mark?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. We have a lot to talk about.
Stop lying.
Well, I got nothing.
We have a guest coming on very soon. Before we do the guest, do you want to do some questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because I mean, there's nothing new in Knicks world, right?
Nothing.
Literally nothing. The next Knicks event is May 14th, the lottery, which you can't even talk lottery strategy. At least when the draft's coming up, you can who the Knicks are going to take. Here it's just who are the ping pong balls going to be for us.
Right. Exactly.
But that's going to be exciting. But so Facebook, Carlos writes, if everything goes wrong in the summer and we don't land any big free agent, what would you guys think of overpaying some veterans on one-year deals? I would like to bring 4 strategic veteran players. Derrick Rose, Trevor Ariza, Carmelo Anthony, and Tyson Chandler. Derrick, I thought he was joking, but there's more to the question. Derrick has a similar explosive playing style as DSJ and could help him improve, especially the jump shot of Dennis. Ariza and Melo could help Knox improve. Ariza could help Knox on defense and three-point shooting. Melo could teach Knox a lot of new offensive moves and how to be a Ninja Turtle. That was my part. And Tyson Chandler could help Mitch work on his defense and rebounding. What do you guys think? A hug from Brazil.
That'd be kind of fun. And then they could all just retire.
Yeah, they'd all retire together. The Derrick Rose won't retire, but and he's probably too young to retire. Well, I think Rose had a successful enough season in Minnesota last year that he's not going to come here to be a mentor.
Right.
And he's probably going to want a multi-year deal. Melo looks so.
I wouldn't want any of them for more than the minimum.
The only ones I like on this, Trevor Ariza, I still think has some value that a good team will want him on a one-year deal.
Yeah,
Tyson Chandler's pretty much, he's kind of done
to
the point where Chandler could come in here and be a veteran, like a mentor to. He'd be a good mentor to Mitch. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. He seems like a really good locker room guy.
Melo could teach Knox how to never pass the ball.
Knox is already good at that.
Oh, okay. He's already mastered not passing the ball and just going. Well, Melo could teach Knox how to go into traffic and not make a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Chandler on a one-year deal. I think Melo also, just being more being serious about the question. There's so much history here already with Melo that I don't think he'd be buying into coming to the Knicks I don't think that's what Melo really would want to do at this point in his career. Do you think he wants to be a veteran that just is more of a mentor?
Well, no, I think if he comes back, he wants to have a role on a playoff team.
I also think the fact that he couldn't come off the bench for, say, the Rockets means he's probably not going to come off the bench for the Knicks.
Yeah.
I also... Yeah, so of the 4 guys, some veterans, and it was like a disaster.
Yeah. Sacramento tried that experiment. Who'd you say, Randolph and...
Zach Randolph and George Hill.
Yeah, that
there might have been another one also, but I forget who it was.
Yeah, it was weird because I don't know if the coach just didn't know who to play when, or
the problem is
too much.
If you bring in veterans who want playing time, it's not going to work. It's got to be guys that really don't care about playing anymore.
Right, like Kevin Garnett's final season in Minnesota, where they're like, "We're going to play you 12 minutes a game," and he's like, "Yeah, that's cool.
I'll take the money." Yeah, you need maybe Vince Carter, who completely at the end of his career could teach he probably could teach a lot to the team.
Even Vince Carter was starting this year, though.
Yeah, it's true. And you can't he's like, I was starting on the Hawks. They had a better record. Why am I going to come off the bench for you guys?
Yeah. All right.
I think the idea of bringing in 1 veteran is not a bad idea, but bringing in 4, I don't think the purpose can be I don't know. I think we're almost better off using the contracts as take a team that has trying to get rid of a contract, take that contract with like a draft pick, like the Nets did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, or what the Knicks did this year, just keep some spots open for the G League and try a bunch of people out.
Yeah, and well, the Knicks are going to have a bunch of money to use. They have to spend a bunch of that money no matter what.
You do have to use 90% of the cap. That is true.
Yeah, so either way, the money has to go to either hey, you'll have to basically give $20 million to some guys, give like a $20 million contract out to someone, something ridiculous, just because they have to spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you can save this cap, but I like Chandler. Maybe find one or two other veterans that are. I like this. This idea is not bad if you can't find some team that's looking to dump a salary. This is not a bad idea either. Lewis writes, "Are you concerned with Kevin Durant and the New York media if he signs with the Knicks?"
No, I'm really not.
No, because he seems like he cares about the media.
He cares about the media, but I don't think he's all of a sudden going to not be a good player because of it.
Here's a question for you: how long will it take the media to turn on Durant?
Oh, 2 games. His first game where he scores under 20.
They'll be like, "Why have you brought a title here yet?" And Durant's like, "This is my introductory press conference. What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah, exactly. No, I could see the media getting to him, but the media is getting to him this season, and he still had one of his best seasons.
Yeah, he still looks pretty darn good. Last question before we bring on Jim. Patrick writes, "What would you?" Jim Cavan's coming on. What would you guys trade the number 1 pick for if we had it? So, Jay, answer this question in the sense of, let's say the Knicks don't get Durant, they're not bringing in a big free agent. What would you trade the number 1 pick if you have to trade the number 1 pick? What would it take to get Zion from you?
The number 2 pick and a starter.
Okay, so let's say the number 2 pick is the Hawks. Would Collins plus the number 2 pick do it for you?
Probably, yeah.
Really? You trade away Zion. The next coming, the second coming, a bona fide superstar in the making for Collins and a number 2 draft pick that'll end up being a trash.
Well, what realistic trade are you going to make?
I'd probably ask for a second first.
A
second, the first next year, and Collins, or maybe Trae Young instead.
Ugh.
He had a pretty good rookie year. I hate to break it to you. He's going to be up there in rookie year voting.
Don't care.
He came on after the first month or two. He really played a lot better.
Yeah, I
take him over Collins.
His defense is going to be a problem forever.
Luka Doncic and the 4th pick in the draft.
Yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad. Okay, let's call on Jim and let's talk Knicks with him and everything else.
All right. All right, so we're joined by Jim Cavan. We had Jim on a few years ago, and then we decided to have basically no guests last season, so we're back to having guests. So how you doing, Jim?
Back to having guests. As the season's ended, the season was a horror show, and we said, Jim, when do you want to come on and talk about the horror show that is the Knicks?
Yeah, what are you guys' names again? Mac and John? Is it?
Close enough. Close enough.
Marc and Jay, my old friends. When you guys reached out to me, I think it was about a week ago. I felt that old tinge of excitement being on the podcast again. It's been a minute, but gonna knock the rust off as fast as I can. In fact, went and played pickup ball tonight for the first time in 2 months, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that long. But I felt like garbage warming up. Couldn't hit anything. Started playing, and we only had 6. We were playing 3s. I think I hit 18 out of 20 shots. So I'm hoping for a repeat performance here.
Nice.
Similar to none of my things going into it. Utterly pessimistic, but it's going to work out.
Do you think the Knicks should, let's just say they strike out in free agency this summer. They don't get the draft pick they want. Everything's a mess. But you have to spend a certain amount. They're going to have a lot of money to spend no matter what. You have to spend 90% of your cap. Should the Knicks go hey, we couldn't bring a big free agent in, but we found Jim balling out in Maine, gave him $20 million for the season because we had to spend the money anyway. And congrats, Jim. You're on the team.
I would refuse a contract. I don't care if it's 5 times the salary that I've ever made. I'm like late career John Crotty at this point. That's the level of my game.
It would be a compelling story if they were starting 4 NBA players and Jim out there. They're like, Jim, you're rolling 40 minutes a night.
Back during the 98-99 strike, I was in high school, and I remember thinking to myself, like, if they ever have a strike again, I'm in my 20s, and I really hone my game. Like, what are the chances that it would go to like a scab situation where they're just picking guys off the street, and I could actually live the dream? But this is a thought that actually went through my 17-year-old brain.
Oh, so you were like not joking around like we are. You were like, no, I think I could do it. Just take let's just say all the NBA players are on strike. The rest of the tall people in America are all dead. I could totally be the guy.
I mean, I was assuming a very optimistic trajectory of talent. Let's put it that way. Like putting in way more time than I ended up putting in college when I played 2 times a week, mostly stoned.
So you were as optimistic as Knicks fans get in the offseason.
That's about right. Yeah. Although, to be frank, I say this every other year, if not every year, I'm optimistic. I don't know, what your guys' broad thoughts are sitting here right now on April 22nd, 2019, after one of the most horrific seasons in Knicks history. But I believe management when they say that they're not going to spend money for the sake of spending money. A lot more needs to come out. I don't know if it will about the Kristaps situation. Obviously, super ugly and awkward and strange. But the fact that they cut ties when they did, I think, shows an organization that genuinely wants to build a culture, and I'm feeling good. I think.
Nothing spells like you've had a good season when the headlines are all like, why this season wasn't as bad as the Knicks' actual worst season, and why this offseason is going to be different, and things like that.
Yeah. But, well, I was doing like a cram session ahead of this call just to refamiliarize myself, because like I told you guys, I haven't watched quite as much Knicks basketball as I typically do or have. When did we get Joakim Noah?
You didn't know we had Joakim Noah 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
Like, I know we're paying him a lot here, but how was he this year? Did he produce?
I think you're being sarcastic now. You had me for a second. So basically, we have 2 seasons for the Knicks. There is the regular season, which is always the season of despair, and the off season, which is the season of hope. We are now in the season of hope. Let me ask the first question to you. Kevin Durant, is he coming here, and does he need to be medicated for coming here?
Boy, I mean, we've had the rug pulled out from under us so many times that I'm reticent to even say this, but I want to say it because I think it sparks a more interesting conversation than if I just say, no, he's not coming, and he's thinking he wants to come. I think he is, and the reason I think he is, there are a few reasons. One, the flack he got for joining the Super Team Warriors and sort of riding those coattails and winning a few chips, sort of in the shadow of the trio that was there before. I think that really eats at him in a real way, and he wants to prove that he can drag his own team to the finals, to a championship, the way LeBron did. Now LeBron was obviously surrounded by a different level of talent than Durant will be, at least immediately. But I think he does genuinely want that challenge. And I keep going back to a couple of things. One, and I know you can't read too much into stuff like this, but Royal Ivey, one of the Knicks assistants, is one of KD's best friends, if I understand correctly. And he's made some sort of cryptic remarks in the few interviews I've seen with him over the season. And then Cantor, a couple months ago, when he was interviewed, said something to the effect of, I know a big name free agent is coming, but I can't say who, or I'll get shot or something like that. And Cantor obviously played with KD and OKC. I think the Knicks know something that the rest of the league doesn't, or at least they did, and now the rest of the league knows, and it's sort of the loudest secret in the NBA. But I think he's coming.
Yeah, I kind of think there's almost too much there's almost too much smoke. There's too many rumors out there for this not to be true. Like, if you remember when LeBron left Miami, there were so many rumors about him coming to Cleveland, and then he came. Then there were so many rumors about him going to LA, and he went there. And not that all the rumors are going to be true, but it seems like the rest of the league wants to laugh at the Knicks. They want to say you're a giant joke. Why would guys go there? It seems like everyone's taking this rumor pretty seriously, to the point where I feel like it probably is actually going to happen, which will be kind of insane as a Knicks fan to actually see this happen.
Yeah, and the lottery and the draft, I think, loom pretty large here, just because of how many moving pieces there are, not just between the Knicks and KD and Kyrie, or any of the other big names we've heard associated with them, but Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard, and where all these pieces fall relative to what happens with the lottery and the draft, I think is a big deal. And I don't know if this was sort of on your guys' agenda, but I thoroughly believe that the league is considering, if they haven't already decided already, to fix this lottery for the Knicks. Like, I actually believe that.
I think it's been fixed for like decades. I mean, I don't think it's fixed every year, but like, I don't know how Cleveland gets 4 number ones. Was it 3 number ones in 4 years?
Yeah. They
clearly, there's something going on with this draft, this lottery, and the league. For too long, New York has been a goddamn joke. The league needs New York to have a better team. It should just be better for the sport. So and Patrick Ewing is coming back to do the lottery for us.
Yes, which is perfect. For obvious reasons. And I've expressed this to a few people, friends and family members who are NBA fans, and they sort of scoff and say, "What are you talking about? Like, they televise the draft lottery. They have an accountant there from PricewaterhouseCoopers or whatever who watches this entire process unfold. Like, there's no way with the sort of ping pong ball technology they're using that they can cheat." It's 2019. What do you mean? You can't calibrate some ping pong balls, with magnets or whatever to like fix the outcome that you want? I don't buy it. I don't want to get too deep in the here, but
no. All I know is that I'm pretty sure the Russians are colluding with Pricewaterhouse to get the Knicks this draft pick they need. And I don't care. I don't care if the Knicks have to go into bed with Russia.
That's some collusion I can get behind.
Yeah, I am down for this. If Putin wants the Knicks to win the title, sign me up.
Just to spite Prokhorov. I'm assuming they're enemies. I don't know.
Yeah. I assume basically like I don't think they're actually enemies, because I think most of Putin's enemies are probably dead. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. I don't know if it's actually fixed. I just find some years the outcome seems quite like, oh, how did they? That's crazy. They won the draft, the lottery right before LeBron went there. Those kind of things just seem kind of ridiculous. That being said, I hope it's fixed. Do you think it matters that the Knicks get, like, if the Knicks get the number 5 pick, will that influence Durant not coming here? Like, is Durant in some ways counting on the Knicks getting Zion to come here?
I don't think so. Because I think NBA players, evaluate the prospective talent coming in the league probably differently than the quote unquote experts do, right? So as an example, RJ Barrett's been a kid that's, been a household name, quote unquote, in NBA circles, at least since he was like 14 years old, right? Or 16 years old. Every NBA player who's sort of worth his salt knows who RJ Barrett is. Most mock drafts have him falling, anywhere between 4 and 7. Like some mocks have him falling later than that, because he has very real flaws in his game. But if the Knicks have the number 5 pick and RJ Barrett is in play for them there, I think Durant looked at that differently than we do, as like a good fit. Kevin Durant knows who RJ Barrett is. I can't speak for him, but I bet he puts a lot more stock in the potential of RJ Barrett, or an RJ Barrett type player, than we would necessarily. So no, I don't think it's a deal breaker for him necessarily.
Do you think Durant would look at this? And again, like, I also want to play the card of just like hope, basically. I'm going to pretend Durant is coming here and try to talk myself into it, because if he doesn't come here, I could be sad afterwards. But I'm gonna pretend go until then. So let's just say Durant's coming here. Do you think he looks at this draft pick as a guy that's gonna play with me, play with him basically, or does he look at this draft pick as an asset they could flip to get another veteran to help him? Like even if they get Zion, do you think his thought is, hey, Zion's great, but he's going to take a few years to really get good. You need to flip Zion for Anthony Davis or someone else.
Right. Well, that's what I mean by a lot of moving parts, right? Now, Zion, we can launch off on a tangent about him anytime you want, is a generational talent and the absolute surefire, no questions asked, number one pick, who I believe will be a perennial all-star in this league and would fit well next to just about anyone. Mostly because of his defense, but also because of what he brings on offense as well. That being said, the Knicks could arguably, possibly, if they had the number one pick sort of in their back pocket, put something together that might entice New Orleans, to make a deal. Now, would I do that necessarily? I've had a couple conversations around this very subject with a couple of Knicks fans, and I honestly would. I mean, there's so many moving parts. Like, if you're convinced that Kevin Durant is not going to come, if Zion isn't flipped for Anthony Davis, then, I think you got to try to do that trade. If Durant's open to playing with Zion Williamson, you have the option of flipping him for Anthony Davis. That would be a tough sell for me. I know Anthony Davis is a generational talent. He's a top 5 player. He's unbelievable, injury history aside. But I just want the experience. And we had this with KP for a while until things flew off the rails. Of watching our franchise grow around a genuine cornerstone. Like, I want that experience, and Zion being that cornerstone would be remarkable.
Right. No, I agree with you. It would be great. Like, we could watch, like, you look at Milwaukee with Giannis. Like, if you had that experience in New York, it'd be amazing. But let's just say Durant says, like, he gives the Knicks, he goes, like, I'm coming here, but I have some conditions. My conditions being, I want another max superstar here, max player here. And I want you to trade Zion. If you can't get Anthony Davis, get someone else of an equivalent. But you got to trade. You got to trade Zion to get someone else to help me right now because we're going for it this year.
Yeah.
Do you give in to Durant's? I guess basically, if Durant says trade everything that's not nailed down to get me veterans. I don't want to play with a young team. Do you do that? Do you go all in for Durant?
I wouldn't personally. I would ride and die with Zion and bank on him in 2 or 3 years being the kind of transcendent superstar that attracts his own supporting cast.
You would be fine if Durant says, this is it. I will sign the dotted line or I'm just going to go somewhere else. You'd be fine turning down Durant.
I would personally, if I were the GM, or if I were Mills,
you're the GM. You're the GM for this.
If I were that troika, I'd say, go suck an egg to Durant.
Wow.
I know they won't do that. And
well, the Knicks clearly are.
If that's the way it unfolds, I could live with it. I could live with Durant sort of dictating the terms of how the team is built going forward. Until 2 years from now, when it turns into an abject disaster and we, regret giving up on, arguably the greatest player of his generation.
But the thing with the Zion, as good, like, there are people that criticize him out there. There are people that are saying that, like, he's not quite as good as everyone's saying. And everyone that here critique him goes, like, will say some shortcomings, then go, I still take him number one. I'm just saying all these shortcomings. But there has been people like, I think Charles Barkley critiqued him. A bunch of people, I've heard people critique him and say, like, when you get to the NBA, players are bigger and stronger. He's not going to be able to do what he's doing in the NBA, doing in college. Not that he won't be. I think he'll be a very good player. But does any of it, like, going, you don't know until he actually gets here? That concern doesn't make you hesitant to go to, like, let's go with the sure thing in Durant.
Let's say he can't get stronger.
Yeah, but he'll chances are he's not going to be as good as Kevin Durant.
Chances are no, he's not. And it's funny you say that because aside from Doncic, over whom I had more arguments that I can recall, and I am still collecting beers on those bets that I made. To me, Zion is the biggest surefire pick since Durant. Durant was the last player I saw where I was like, holy shit, this kid is an absolute lock. And I know I'm not, alone in that camp by any means. I mean, I think half the NBA fans who were watching that draft wondered what the hell Portland was doing. But people had criticisms of LeBron before he came in the league, and some of the same criticisms. Well, he's not going to be able to outmuscle, NBA players when he gets to the next level. He's not going to be able to do X. He's not going to be able to do Y. And, it took him a while to sort of really assert himself, physically as a leader, et cetera. But it happened, and it happened pretty quick. And they're different players, obviously,
right,
in a lot of ways. But I think media types pointing out those flaws, it can't just be a love fest 24/7. You need some conversation. You need some discourse, and that's what sort of drives the league in a lot of ways, is having those debates, and it gets people thinking, and it makes the whole sort of dynamic interesting. So I don't blame him for it. I just don't agree.
I mean, I agree with you. I like the fact that people will point out Chris. I don't like when the media all just goes, everyone's just agreeing. Everyone's just like, yeah, he's great. Everyone just hypes up, and then the hype train keeps cascading, and everyone just assumes the guy's gonna be the greatest thing since sliced bread. If you have people critiquing him, then at least there's like some kind of, at least a fair look at him and go like, hey, is he really gonna be this good? Let's have a conversation about it. How good do you think he'll actually be? Do you think he'll be like, year one, is he rookie of the year? How is he does he have potential to be a top 5 player in the league? Not in year one,
I think
like long term.
Top 5 player in the league year one?
No. Not top 5 player in the year. I meant rookie of the year for year one, and top 5 player in the year within like 4 or 5 years.
Sure. Yeah, I think both of those things are absolutely on the table.
If you had to say what was his shortcoming, what concern you had to what concerns you about his game? Is there anything that concerns you about his game?
Now, obviously, his outside shot, which improved over the year and became more consistent, is I don't want to say cause for concern, but his release is a little janky. He needs to work on his mechanics. He's not going to be able to get that shot away as easily at the next level. Although, teams are probably going to opt to keep him, let him shoot that, as often as he wants, so long as he doesn't get ahead of steam and, just destroy them in the paint. His shooting, his ball handling is way better than people think. I think his passing and his vision are better than people think. The first comparison I heard that really got me thinking, and I thought was great and perfect, was Dominique Wilkins meets Charles Barkley.
Oh.
And I was writing on that for a while. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I heard, I can't remember who it was. Maybe you guys will remember. Someone described him as Draymond Green with rockets in his ass. And I thought that was pretty perfect. Now, is Draymond Green a top 5 player in the NBA? Obviously not. But Draymond Green was a 4-year college player who came to the league at 22, 23 years old. Very similar skill set in a lot of ways, but Zion just has that off the charts athleticism that Draymond obviously doesn't. But both intelligent players, both defensively anyway, can switch all 5 positions. I think he's going to be an absolute terror on defense, and that's where you're going to see his impact first and foremost, and his offense is going to come. But if I'm going to put like number predictions on his production for next year, I would say 17, 9, and 3, something like that.
No, that'd be great. I mean, do you think he's okay? I get he's big, and he'll probably bang with the center, and he's going to be a lot faster than a center, and probably faster than any power forwards. Do you think he's quick enough to like guard is he going to be able to guard like a 3 or like a guard in this league? Like, I know you just said he could switch in all 5 positions.
Well, there are going to be certain matchups that are bad for him, out of the gate. And I'm trying to think of someone that comes immediately to mind, like, a Harden type. I think he might get duped into some ticky-tack fouls. Staying out on someone like Steph Curry, like I don't know. I don't know if he can hang. But I think over time, he'll show that ability, and Draymond shows that ability. I mean, you don't want him on, James Harden every possession down the floor, but
right,
he's capable of making life difficult for those elite point guards.
No, the ability to switch, as Golden State has shown, the ability to switch makes you quite a dangerous defense. When they can't get mismatches. I think he looks like he's going to be a great player. My only concern is the hype too much. There's some concerns I have. I have the concerns, the outside shot, yes. I'm concerned he's so big. You wonder like I guess like he's to be the heaviest or second heaviest player in the league. And somehow is he going to be is he going to work hard enough to make that work for himself, or will he get bigger? Basically, will he like eat himself? Like, is there a chance he'll just get like and pull an Eddie Curry on us?
Yeah. Turn into Oliver Miller or something.
Yeah, because he's in probably amazing shape, and like compared to me, compared to a normal human being, he's probably in crazy amazing shape. But he probably could lose some weight and probably be more fit, basically, for the NBA.
Yeah, for sure, and that's a point well taken. And I don't have any sort of grand insight into sort of the psychology of Zion Williams, other than what I've sort of witnessed, in watching a handful of Duke games over the year. And I will say that he's very intense. Like when he gets pulled out of a game with a second foul, 10 minutes left in the first half, like he's legit angry. And he's relatively composed on the court. I'm not saying he's a Charles Barkley type in that regard, but you can tell he cares, and you can tell he's passionate about the game. He hates sitting down. He wants to be out there all the time, and those tea leaves are only worth so much. But I get a good vibe. I get it. He carries himself with an energy and a tenacity that I think bodes well, for that going forward.
Yeah, I mean, on offense, the comparison I was thinking it was like a Blake Griffin type. Because Blake Griffin came in the league, he may be more athletic than Blake Griffin was at the beginning of his career, but Blake Griffin could jump out. He could jump out the ceiling also when he came in the league. Right. Injuries have obviously hobbled him a bit, but I don't think his offense, like if he turned out to be a Blake Griffin, that would still be an amazing. It'd still be quite a career here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I don't think anyone would be disappointed by that, but I think he can. I think he can go a couple of notches above that.
Yeah, we'll see. So outside of so the Knicks clearly aren't going to get Zion because as much as I'd like to hope the league is fixed, it's probably not. Or even if it's fixed, it'll be fixed against.
You're willing it out of existence as we speak.
Yeah. So
do it.
Have you watched enough of college to say like, here's a guy the Knicks should take number 2 if they get the second pick?
Oh man, it's so hard. Like, I feel like in the same way that the Zion hype train got out of control a little bit, the flack that an RJ Barrett got seems a little extreme to me. I think he has very noticeable flaws in his game, and you sort of get, even though they have like different games, you sort of get Andrew Wiggins-ish vibes from Barrett a lot. But he shows flashes of absolute brilliance and the ability to be unstoppable. And I think, playing in that non-offense that Krzyzewski ran alongside a player of Zion's caliber, maybe threw him off a little bit. And this is despite having ridiculous statistics for a freshman at that level in the ACC at a program like Duke. So, I think there might be a course correction there with RJ Barrett, and we might see sooner than later, the talent that everyone believed he was going to be heading into this last season. As for John Moran, like, it's so hard to tell in a conference like that, what's fool's gold and what's not. He's enticing in a lot of ways. He's got a lot of Russell Westbrook to him. But that's a roll of the dice too. There are a lot of potential perennial all-stars in this draft, but there are a ton of crap.
I like how you put that because I in the sense of like you have the hype train for Zion and then like the anti-hype train for everyone else in the draft. It's almost like you can get a potential Hall of Famer with the first pick, or the number 2 pick is basically a guy that you'd hope to get in the second round. Like they just
right.
It's a everyone else just they point out these giant flaws and they kind of like deride their game and just say like, oh well, I guess you got that guy number 2. That'd be a lame pick, but I guess you'd have to take because no one else is good in this draft apparently.
Yeah, and Jarrett Culver is intriguing for a lot. I mean, a great 2-way player in college, versatile, can dish it as well as score. Obviously doesn't have the explosive athleticism some of these other guys have. He's intriguing, but I don't know what his ceiling is. And then it just sort of gets foggier from there. But if the Knicks end up with a 2 pick, although I haven't really done any deep diving on this. Someone just mentioned it in passing, but is it true that the Suns are actually considering taking Ja with the number 1 pick if they get the number 1 pick? Have you heard rumors to that effect?
I can't. I mean, the Suns are stupid, but that would be really a whole level of that would be a second level of stupid. Especially because
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was like, you already have like. First of all, my understanding is Morant. Like the one of the issues with him is they wonder about his defense. You already have Devin Booker who could score and can't play defense. Like, why would you take another player that can't do that?
Well, they don't have a point guard.
Yeah, but it's not gonna like.
They haven't had a point guard in like 3 years.
They're also like you had the first pick in the draft this year, and you decide the guy to take the center doesn't play a lot of defense. Why? Like at some point you have to get guys that can play defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I put much credence into that. I think they're just trying to sort of throw people off the scent, as early as they can, because they know that there are so many moving parts to this off season, between the top tier all-stars and sort of top heavy, but still fairly unpredictable draft. And teams put out messages that they feel are going to benefit them, for whatever reason. And so I don't put too much credence into it. I can't imagine anyone passing on Zion, but you never know.
I'm trying to think of like the Suns rosters or anyone's job that Zion takes, where you're trying to keep things calm because you don't want to let on you take Zion unless you had the number 1 pick because you don't want to ruin things. Is there any
like TJ Warren?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're just saying that because they're like TJ Warren, we really like you. We wouldn't even take Zion if we had a chance. TJ, we like you so much. I don't know.
Josh Jackson, I guess.
Yeah, Josh Jackson. He was. They really. It's amazing how many times you can go back to the well of having a top pick and just screw it up again.
Well, Josh Jackson showed some flashes during the year, but I was never like that high on him. I thought he had the potential to sort of turn into a nice player. Maybe he still does. He's still super young, but man, that kid couldn't hit an ocean from.
Well, yes, he's terrible. He makes Ntilikina look like he can play offense.
Oh man, don't talk about Frank like that.
We're gonna have to go there. You know that we're gonna talk about the Knicks. We're gonna have to get to the current roster. But let me ask you before we go to the current roster. Let's say the Knicks don't sign any big free agents, and you're doing the draft. You have the number 2 pick. Which player do you take to bet? Like, which player do you take basically to have the best fit on this current roster?
The best fit with this current roster.
Yeah, you're assuming that you're not getting a big free agent, so you're not making any major moves this offseason. Your moves are coming from the draft. Yeah. Which player are you taking to develop?
To be honest, I'd probably roll the dice on Ja. If you're asking me right now.
Yeah.
And I have many complicated feelings about this, some of which we'll probably get into with regards to Frank, with regards to Dennis Smith Jr. It's complicated, but I think gun to my head right now, I would take Ja.
I would take Ja too. You might as well have we've been looking for a point guard forever. You might as well roll the dice with the best point guard in the draft.
Right.
Yeah. I agree with you there. Do you think, looking back at the last 2, the Knicks they've taken Ntilikina and they took Knox. Why are the Knicks so bad at drafting?
Well, let's take each of them. Let's take each of them in turn.
And Knox, we can get later on. We'll get to the fact that Mitchell Robinson is the finding gold in the draft. Are you big on Mitchell Robinson? I assume you are, or else we're going to hang up on you.
Am I what?
You're big on Mitchell Robinson, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And not just because he's shown himself to be an elite shot blocker and rim protector and an improving rebounder, but I've seen myriad videos of him warming up and shooting threes, and the dude has a stroke. Like, in 3 years, that's going to be a thing in his game, and it's going to be devastating. Like, mark my words.
I agree with you. I think did you watch him at the basket? His post moves now, they're very he needs a lot of work in the post, but sometimes he'll do a scoop layup or something. And you're like, wow. It's
effortless for him. So certain aspects of the game are effortless for him in a way that is rare. And I mean, we shouldn't be totally surprised, right? This kid was a McDonald's All-American, top 10 recruit, was on everybody's radar screen. For some reason, chose to go to Western Kentucky. I never got the full story on that. Got to wherever the hell Western Kentucky is, looked around and said, yeah, I'm just going to go hang out in the gym for the next 6 months. And, drops to the second round, and here we are. it's an amazing story in a lot of ways, and a stroke of luck that the Knicks never get. But man, is he fun to watch.
Oh my God! I mean, the second half of the season, the only thing worth watching on the Knicks was to watch Mitchell Robinson. When he was off the court, you're like, okay, I guess I'll change the channel until he comes back on the court. I wish they could have like a Mitchell Robinson alert. He's back on the court to let you know.
And credit to Fizdale for navigating this tank, pretty deftly at points, and understanding that the Knicks are substantially better with Mitchell Robinson on the floor, and you got to sort of, limit this rookie's minutes. He hasn't played competitive basketball in more than a year, and B, take into account that we play this kid too much, we're actually going to win some games and totally put ourselves out of contention for the number one pick. So I think Fizdale deserves credit for threading that needle pretty impressively.
So you're under the theory that Fizdale was trying to help the tank, not that he was trying to win every game, and 17 is just as good as they could have got.
I think he's a smart dude. I think he knows the score. I think he understands that management is going to give him a long leash for at least a few years, and there's absolutely no risk in him losing his job this year. He's obviously going to tell the media and fans who are listening that he's trying to win every game, because he has to say that. But I think he's smart enough to know what this process entails, and didn't always push the right buttons, but pushed the right buttons enough of the time to put us in this position. I don't know if he's the coach of the future for this team, but I like him more than most people, and want to see management give him a couple more years at least.
So you think you've seen enough from him that you would say, I hope he has like a 5-year deal. I hope he gets a coach here for 5 years.
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question. If they show market improvement over the next couple of years, then yes, obviously. Now, if they land Durant and they get, the second or third pick, and they're a 42-win team next year and a 48-win team the year after that, then I think you really got to start obviously asking questions. But I mean, that's all on the road.
So let's just go back to our boys, Ntilikina and Knox. I would say where I am with these players is Ntilikina. I just don't think he'll ever develop the offensive game to really be a starter in the league. His defense, and sometimes it's really good. Sometimes, like this past season, I don't think the defense was as good as advertised. I think at best he'll be a solid role player off the bench, and that's where his ceiling is right now. Knox, there's a lot I liked. His offensive game looks like if he ever learns to pass, he could end up being a very good offensive player. His efficiency was lacking. His defense was a joke. Though I still think he could develop into a solid NBA starter. But I am a little bit more. I'm not as high as I was on him, like coming out of summer league. What's your take on these guys?
Yeah, well, I'll take them one at a time. Let's start with Knox. You're talking about a kid who was, I believe, either the youngest or the second youngest player in his class, and was playing on a terrible team. And his efficiency suffered not just because of that. It's also sort of owing to the flaws in his game. But I still think this kid can be a fringe all-star at some point in his career. Sometimes he does things that just make your jaw drop. The way he runs on the open floor, the way he handles the ball on the open floor. The one time out of every 5 games where he actually makes a good pass in the right read. He's displayed good vision and sort of fits and starts, although he's I don't know if he had sort of the green light from the coaching staff to just chuck it, to sort of get his confidence up or whatever. Obviously his efficiency was abysmal. This summer is going to be huge for him, not just in terms of working on his body and getting stronger and getting quicker, particularly laterally, getting to the sort of defense criticism that you brought up. But, how he fits into the team going forward, if we land Durant, if we land Kyrie or whomever else, is going to be a big question mark going forward. But I think it's way too early to sort of place a ceiling on a kid that, has shown flashes of being a really, really good player in this league. As for Frank, I mean, what a hard luck season that kid had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you want him to to really emerge in his second year. Instead, he was injured most of the year.
And talk about showing flashes. I mean, and they were fewer and farther between than they were with Knox, obviously. But when he decides he wants to drive by his man and get into the paint and make things happen, he can do it. He's not lightning fast. He's not the quickest dude in the world, but he's a good enough ball handler and has, good enough vision when he's in traffic to make things happen. It's a confidence thing with him more than anything, and constantly needing to defer to the guys around him and not wanting to be a chucker, not wanting to be seen as a ball hog. He's too unselfish. And I don't know if that's something that you can chisel out of a player. You know what I mean? I don't know. I have a lot of questions about Frank. I still believe, and we don't even know if this kid is actually a point guard or what the hell he is. I think the jury's still out on that. Although I'm reticent to say that that's his natural position. But I mean, NBA history is littered with stories of guys for whom it took 2, 3, 4, 5 years to figure it out.
D'Angelo Russell.
And position in the league to play, particularly nowadays, with the way offenses are constructed and the way the ball moves and the way a point guard has to orchestrate it. Do I think he can figure it out? Yeah. Do I think he can be a starter on a good team? Yeah. Do I think he'll be an all-star? Probably not. But I want to give him one more year is the long short of it. I feel like this team owes it to him to give him one more year to prove himself. And if it doesn't happen, I still think you can find a market for him because of his defense. And for the reason that you said, that he can be, a rotation player on a decent team, given enough time. But, yeah.
I'm fine. If Durant's coming here, I'm fine with trading just about anyone. I'd like to keep Mitchell Robinson, but everyone else could be traded to help us compete. If Durant is not coming here, I would say just keep Ntilikina and keep him through his rookie contract. See if he can develop and get better. I wonder if Ntilikina really has the killer instinct. As you said, there's some points where he puts his head down. He drives the paint, and you're like, wow, he actually has a flash of brilliance, but then doesn't do it the rest of the game. And I don't think you have to necessarily be a chucker, but you've got to have some offensive game if you're going to be able to. If people are going to take you seriously as a passer, also instead of just assuming you're going to pass the ball every time. Who would be a better point guard for the Knicks next season? Ntilikina or Mario Hezonja?
Point Hezonja. I did catch flashes of that the last handful of games.
That was must-see TV for a little while.
Yeah, and yeah, who knows what Hezonja's future is with this team. But I will say, as sort of a general statement, that I appreciated and agreed with this strategy that management and the coaches have taken with these reclamation projects, right? Get these guys who are lottery picks, who haven't panned out, at least to date, throw them on a team together and see who comes out on top, and banking on one or two of them panning out and turning into, good to or serviceable to good players. And I think as a strategy, it's an interesting one, and I'm curious to see, how it plays out. Hezonja is an example. Dennis Smith Jr., I don't know if you quite put him in that camp, because he's only in the second year, just finished his second year. What are your guys' thoughts on Dennis Smith Jr.? Where does he fit into this team going forward? Are you believers? Are you not?
I'm more a believer than him than Ntilikina. I think offensively, he seems like there's real potential there. He seems like if he could develop an outside shot, he'd end up being a really good scorer. He seems like he can pass. I really like the potential because also on defense, he also looks pretty aggressive on defense. He does not look lost on defense. Whereas Knox, I have some concerns about his defense. Hopefully he'll get better, but sometimes he just doesn't seem like he's even trying or just totally out of place. I've been impressed so far with Dennis Smith Jr. I expected his defense to be terrible, and so far it's been at times pretty good.
Yeah, you're right. It's been better than advertised for sure.
Yeah, so I feel like Dennis Smith has to stay healthy. I think that'll be a concern. I feel like he's a guy that could really take the next step the next year. Maybe not. I think he'll get better next year. I think he's a guy I could see in year 4 or 5 pulling a D'Angelo Russell, where they suddenly are emerging as one of the better young point guards in the league.
Yeah, Yeah, no, that's an interesting comp. I mean, they're different players in a lot of ways, but talk about guys just taking a while to sort of figure it out. And the one misgiving I have about Smith, if I have one at all, is we talked earlier about sort of the vibe I get or people get from Zion, right? He just sort of has this intensity, like
Right.
You can tell he cares, and you can tell he wants to be great and get better constantly. I don't want to say I get the opposite vibe from Dennis Smith, but there is a little bit of a nonchalance to him that can be off-putting, and I don't know if it's I don't know what it's about, but I haven't formed a hard set opinion on it, but I get weird vibes from him sometimes.
Well, I agree with you to a certain extent. Like you see, like he'll have like a big game for the Knicks. He's had a couple big games, then like he'll like disappear the next night, and you're like, how did you disappear? You just like dominated the night before, and then you disappear for a couple game stretch.
Well, aloof is the word I was looking for, and it's not even sort of strictly in his on-court play, but in post-game interviews and then interviews sort of during practice and stuff. There's an aloofness to him that, I don't want to call it alarming or even concerning, but it's something to keep an eye on because, sometimes that can bear itself out. And
I mean, he's had a weird situation so far. He goes to Dallas. They like draft him to be their point guard, and then by his second year, they've drafted his replacement. And they're like, you're no longer our point guard, basically. And then they trade him halfway through the season, and he's like, what the heck is going on? I feel like maybe some of that's cured by the Knicks, like, seasons, like, next year, they're like, you're our guy. Unless, obviously, if they draft John Morant, then maybe you're not my guy, and then it's not going to work out. But if the Knicks don't have a point guard, and they're like, Dennis Smith, we really want to develop you, maybe he, like, in return, really works just as hard, basically. And has more of that instinct. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by a million moving parts. What does drafting John Morant say to Dennis Smith, to Frank Ntilikina? Does it matter? Is it worth taking a flyer on R.J. Barrett or Jarrett Culver with the number 2 pick, knowing that they sort of slot in more seamlessly with the talent you already have? Like it's going to be super interesting.
Speaking of killer instinct, what do you think of Trier? Because he does seem like, at least offensively, he's got some killer instinct. He's a hell of a pickup for a non-drafted free agent. Free agent. What do you think of Trier? Do you think Trier has potential to be? Where's his ceiling?
What's his ceiling? That's a good question. I don't know how much stock or credence I put into this report that Behrman put out. I think it was like a week or two ago that he rubbed a lot of his teammates the wrong way
Didn't they say the veterans the wrong way? Not necessarily. He didn't. Not that it should be that big of a difference, but like I think he said that some of the veterans did not like him, or didn't. He rubbed the veterans the wrong way. Which
how many veterans are there? We're talking about Lance Thomas and who qualifies as a veteran on the team other than Lance Thomas?
Maybe Cantor didn't like him. I don't know. There weren't too many veterans. I think there was something somewhere I saw that Trey Burke wasn't a huge fan of his, but like Trey Burke must have been also like, hey, he's stealing my game.
He's stealing his dinner. Yeah, I can understand that.
The ghost of Courtney Lee.
Courtney Lee. I mean, Courtney Lee wasn't really playing to begin with.
Might have still pissed him off.
Yeah, it's true.
I got the impression reading that he was interviewing current Knicks, but maybe not. Maybe he was interviewing guys that were on the team earlier in the year.
Well, Jay and I were discussing this last show when we were like, well, I mean, one of the things you can knock Trier for is he kind of sometimes puts his head down, just drives to the basket, does not pass the ball. But you could say that all the criticism you can say about him would be the same thing you could say about Knox. And not that you need to criticize either of these guys, but how are they different enough that like one guy gets critiqued and the other guy gets loved? I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I mean, I like Trier a lot. His obvious flaw, notwithstanding. Ceiling, like, I can get a little hyperbolic with these things sometimes, but
just say Michael Jordan. His ceiling's Michael Jordan. Go on.
Like a great sixth man, like a quintessential sixth man. I think that's his destiny, right?
Jamal Crawford.
I don't want to put him on like the Jamal Crawford, Lou Williams plane just yet, but the dude can get buckets, and on a good team. Hello.
Yeah, I was going to say, here's one for you. What about can he beat J.R. Smith without the clubbing?
Oh man, I don't want to blaspheme here.
Is there anyone else in this roster that? I guess actually the other young player, Dotson. What do you think of Dotson?
I mean, talk about a guy who really came on strong at the end of the year and became in a lot of games like the go-to option.
Yeah,
and efficient to boot. Also a guy who plays good defense most of the time. He's older, obviously, for a second-year player, but he's a guy that's I think worth holding on to. Even if he's like a seventh, eighth man, a guy who can come in, hit some shots, play good defense, distribute the ball when needed. I think he appreciates being here. I've been impressed by him, to be frank. I mean, his numbers, his advanced stats look really good, even on a bad team. And I think surrounded by good players, he's the kind of guy who has the potential to sort of elevate his game.
Is there anyone else on the roster that you would like? Are you remotely excited about anyone else on the roster besides the players we've already discussed? Is there anyone else like a Vonleh or what else is on this roster?
Well, I'm looking at
Cornet.
How about Ron Baker? No, I'm just kidding.
Ron Baker, $4 million. He was the guy that was given $4 million. That he was you basically what the Knicks should do. Like, they got a guy who played pickup basketball, and they're like, "Here's a contract that makes no sense."
I mean, Ellison's sort of intriguing, right? He had a couple of like sort of bust out games towards the end of the year.
Henry Ellison.
Yeah.
No, he was interesting. His ability to shoot from three made him interesting.
Right. He's somewhat intriguing, but no one that I'm even remotely sort of married to as far as the long-term option. Vonleh, this is a great year for Vonleh in that he proved he belongs in this league and has a number of, sort of high-level skills that are useful in today's NBA. I don't know if his future is here, but I think he's proven that he has a home in the NBA and he'll land somewhere and hopefully, stick.
Do you think other players, Moutier, do you think any team actually signed him to a multi-year? The rumor was that he was going to get a multi-year deal from another team. Do you think there's any is any team going to go like, hey, we're excited about Moutier as our point guard?
I was hoping we would get through this entire podcast without bringing him up. Alas.
We can move on from Moutier. It's depressing discussing him.
It's of a piece with what this team is. The reclamation projects and this sort of logjam we have at point guard, and who's got the highest ceiling and who's worth investing time and money and effort into. I mean, personally, I hope he's gone after this year, and similar to Vonleh in some ways, proved he belongs in this league. I could see him carving out a niche as a solid, an average to solid backup on a decent team, maybe not a great team. There's just way too many flaws in his game for me to take him seriously as like a long-term option.
He won't be as good as this player, but like just an example, like a Dennis Schroeder who looked a lot better as an OKC backup than he looked as the Atlanta starting point guard. Maybe Moutier, similarly not as good as Schroeder, but can like become, as you said, like a solid backup somewhere. It's funny also to be like, hey, this guy, the worst team in the NBA, said we don't want him anymore, but I'm sure he'll get a multi-year deal somewhere else.
No, I think that's an interesting comp, the Schroeder comp. And sometimes guys like that, and Moutier is a guy, I get the impression that it's very easy for him to get in his own head and sort of sabotage himself psychologically. And, it's been a tough few years for him in that regard, but sometimes you just need to know exactly what your role is and what your place is. And when it's on a good team with veterans and guys who know their role, that can make that transition a lot easier. So maybe that is his destiny, being a backup point guard on a good team where he doesn't have to feel the pressure of being the franchise cornerstone or being the point guard of the future. He can just sort of play his role, play it well, and thrive.
Not to rip on it all what you just said, but I've noticed people saying a lot. You made a comment about Moutier that I've noticed a lot of people have said about a lot of players in the Knicks. Essentially, Wouldn't this guy look a lot better if he was on a good team?
It's kind of a crutch. It's something you fall back on when a player isn't panning out the way you think he is. But
people are like, if Ron Baker was on Golden State, I bet they'd make him. He'd be useful on Golden State. It's just a funny. It's a funny thing, and I said it also. Like a lot of these players, you feel like if they're not
Klay Thompson, obviously, but
yeah. So let's go back to we don't want to keep it too much longer. But going back to Kevin Durant, who should he pair with Kevin Durant? Big free agent Durant. First of all, Jay has some theory that you could take. You don't necessarily have to sign a second big free agent when you get Durant. You could use the money wisely on multiple players. I think if Durant's coming here, he will not sign the contract unless the Knicks are going to sign another big free agent. Like you pretty much have to sign another big free agent to get Durant to come here.
Right. Yeah, it's a great question.
Because all the choices seem like they're not players you would necessarily want to give. Like, Kawhi is probably not coming here. Klay Thompson's probably not coming here. And everyone else,
Kawhi would be my guy to pair with Durant, but I don't think that's on the table.
It seems like that one's not on the table. It seems like, if anything, it's the Clippers or he stays in Toronto. There aren't too many other options I see happening. And Klay Thompson doesn't seem like he's unhappy in Golden State. He's fine with just winning. So it's the choices seem to be pick your poison with Kyrie, Kemba, Jimmy Butler,
Chris Middleton.
Are we really putting Milton in that same class?
No. I mean, he's a tier below. But what I worry about with Middleton, I think he could be a Klay Thompson-like fit alongside Durant. The problem is he's going to demand max money, and I don't think he's worth that. So that's the issue with him.
Right, but they're all going to, like, Jay was like, why don't we sign D'Angelo Russell? I'm like, yeah, he'll also want max money. No one's coming here without max money, so you just have to go with the guy that you'll pick your poison, the guy that you're most happy with being unhappy with the money they're getting. But
what's Russell's situation? Is he restricted this summer?
I think he's just a free agent. Jay, are you?
I'm pretty sure he's just a free agent.
Really? I assume the Nets are going to go all in to keep him, and I would think he's had a good enough experience playing for Brooklyn that he probably will stay.
Right.
I mean, wouldn't begrudge anyone taking the money.
I know the Zapruder film of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving talking in the hallway. I don't know if it's before or after the All-Star game. Got everyone in a tizzy.
The one where their hands over their mouths talking. Or which one?
Yeah. 2 minute slots. But Kyrie, for as brilliant as he is, I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't say that I would want Kemba over Kyrie, because I think Kyrie is the better player. But talk about weird vibes. I get weird vibes from Kyrie, and you don't want to put too much stock in Kemba Walker's UConn career and the fact that he was brilliant in Madison Square Garden as a college player is any kind of reason to sign him to a max contract. But there is something special about Kemba at Madison Square Garden that would be intriguing under the right circumstances and surrounded by the right players. But I don't know who those players are other than Kevin Durant. So the point guard situation, is going to remain in flux, and it's going to be really interesting.
I think Kyrie's going to sign in LA. I think he's going to play with LeBron again and just just confuse the whole league. I'm dead serious. I really think he's going to LA. I think he saw life without LeBron and was like, he's like, life with LeBron's better than life without LeBron.
No, not the Clippers though. He's going to the Lakers.
Lakers, not the Clippers.
Okay.
I think if I had to make my prediction, I think it's going to be Jimmy Butler here and we're not going to be happy with it, but I think it's going to be Jimmy Butler with Durant.
Nobody else wants him.
I think the Knicks will look around. I think you could give the money to Kemba. It'll be Kemba or Jimmy Butler. And I think the Knicks might look around and just say, I don't think they'll have so much trouble pulling the trigger on Kemba that they'll take Jimmy Butler and just think, it will make it work here with which I don't know. Any of those choices are not.
So here's my question. If the Knicks...
It never works with Jimmy Butler.
If the Knicks get Jimmy Butler, Jim, do you want to take over as host of the show? Because I don't want to do it anymore.
It's a tough. I mean, I don't want Boogie Cousins. He's another big name. I don't know. So if the Knicks don't get Durant, what's your goal? What do you think the Knicks should do? If you're the GM, I think Jay and I would both say if you don't get Durant, you don't sign anyone big. You don't sign anyone to a multi-year deal. You just go in for next offseason's free agency.
Yeah, I think that's sort of where I'd lean. And I know most fans would hate that. I would hate it on some level too. Not that I disagree with the long-term plan, but just sort of the existential frustration of striking out yet again. And I don't think it's going to happen. I think, again, I think the Knicks know something that the rest of the league is only sort of slightly aware of. And I don't know who Durant pairs up with. I don't know what the roster looks like, 3 months from now, but I have a feeling that he's coming. And that's not to say that it's ultimately going to be the best thing for this franchise in the long term. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 30 years old, obviously, generational talent in his own right. Top 3 player in the NBA. But he's racking up the miles, and do you really want to commit, 5 years to a guy like that? Not an alarming injury history by any stretch, but again, that's why I think this draft pick looms as large as it does, because if it's number one, Zion sort of changes the calculus in a lot of different ways. And I think you can strike out in free agency and still feel okay about the state of the franchise going forward.
If the Knicks get Zion, they get Durant, they get some other max for player, would you rather trade Zion for Anthony Davis or Damian Lillard?
I mean, Anthony Davis, obviously, but
well, I'm just wondering in the sense of Anthony Davis is great, but maybe having like a premier point guard next to Kevin Durant might be more of a better fit. Or is that crazy?
It's a fair question. It's a fair question. I love Dame. He's a ton of fun to watch and underrated in a way, given sort of the absurd amount of talent that position in today's NBA. But I haven't given it much thought, honestly. But
I was just wondering if, let's say, New Orleans, they already seem a little crazy over there. Let's just say, because I feel like if you're New Orleans, you're going to trade Anthony Davis. Getting Zion would be a fair. I mean, obviously there'd be other players involved, but that'd be a fair. I can sell my fan base on the dream of Zion if I get rid of Anthony Davis. But let's just say New Orleans says we either convince Anthony Davis to stay, or we're not doing the trade. I feel like the next player you would be realistic to trade for might be Dame Lillard, because they look around the league. Who else would you trade Zion for if you're going to look for immediate help for Durant?
Right. Right.
And he's already in a situation where you can see Portland going well, this is not
LeBron?
working out. Yeah, that'd be an interesting choice. Durant's I didn't sign here. I don't care what the contract says. I'm not playing.
Luka Doncic. Dangle Zion for Luka Doncic.
We just said that, actually. We were just saying if you had to trade, let's just say that Durant's not coming here, but you have to trade Zion. What would it take? And I think we agreed on if you can get Luka and a number 1 draft pick, I would do that.
Yeah, I would think long and hard about that.
Yeah.
And I love Luka Zion for different reasons, and I would be happy with either of them. I mean, this is total. It'll never happen. But I have a feeling that Durant's coming. I have a feeling the Knicks are getting number 1 pick. It seems like an embarrassment of riches, but at least it gives them, the sort of tools they need to work with, and work around those edges.
I mean, also, if the Knicks do not get Durant, and they've traded their best player, their best draft pick since Patrick Ewing, to clear cap space to get Durant and another max player. If they do not get him, that'll be a butt fumble level embarrassment for the Knicks.
I think it would be a couple degrees beyond butt fumble, but I don't see them doing that. I mean, they have to do and achieve a lot more for me to really believe in them. But they have shown, at the very least, a knack for avoiding total incompetence so far. And I I think they know what they're doing. I want to believe they know what they're doing, but I do think that this summer is going to say a lot about, what their designs actually are and whether they're committed to building the winner the right way. And, if an opportunity presents itself to build a championship contender on the fly, can they do it the right way? And I think it's going to be, every summer is batshit with the Knicks, but this summer in particular, I think, is going to be fascinating to watch.
So, two last questions for you. One Knicks and one non-Knicks. Knicks related. Give me one hot take, one bold prediction about the Knicks summer.
Man.
James Dolan prediction.
James Dolan sells the team to Jeff Bezos.
That'd be why not? I'd be down for the richest, craziest person in the world getting the Knicks. That sounds better than Dolan. I was gonna say my crazy hot take for the summer is the offseason is that the offseason ends. I am not crying. I am happy. Would be a crazy. And second question: Golden State does not win the title. Who wins it this year if it's not Golden State?
Man. I really like the Bucks.
Yeah, they got clearly they have a very good team.
And I think it'd just be fun to watch, a quote unquote small market bring home the hardware. Houston is dangerous, obviously, and has the firepower and the coaching, frankly, necessary to win it all. Those are the two teams that I sort of zero in on as legit contenders if Golden State falls apart. I do think, and we all know that Golden State has a gear that nobody else can get to. The question is, are they bored? And that's a different question. And when that level of sort of boredom and complacency sinks in, it's hard to find that gear. You know what I mean? When you just don't give a shit.
Do you think Giannis could be so good that Golden State does not have an answer for him?
No, I think they find a way over a 7-game series to, if not neutralize him, then make life difficult for him. And Draymond Green is a player that, Giannis is a physical specimen and would dominate Draymond in sort of fits and starts. But I think players like that can make life difficult for him. Guys who have low centers of gravity, who can sort of get physical on his level of physicality.
Yeah,
and just throwing bodies at him, and I don't know. I still think Golden State is the odds-on favorite to win it, but you never know.
Obviously, you're not going out on a limb by saying Golden State's the odds-on favorite to win. I just feel like I'm trying to think of the way they would lose, and I either think someone matching them at their game, Houston just throwing up a ton of threes and having them fall because they came close last year beating them. If Chris Paul remains healthy, there's a decent chance Houston wins and goes on to the finals. Or just having a physical, just a physical freak, basically, who they cannot stop, like a Giannis, that makes such a big difference.
I would just say, great teams know how to exploit your weaknesses, and Giannis, for all of his unbelievable attributes as a basketball player, still can't shoot.
More than 5 feet from the basket.
Right, exactly, and in a 7-game series, that's the sort of thing that can be exploited to a degree that steals a couple of games. So I don't think Golden State's the best matchup for Milwaukee. The question is whether Golden State gets dethroned, en route to the finals, and it's Houston, Milwaukee, or whoever.
Yeah. So thank you, Jim. Thank you for joining us. This was an awesome conversation. No, we promise not to wait 2 years before having you back on because you're always a great guest.
No, anytime, and we'll have to do it over the summer after the either after the lottery or after the draft. When these pieces really start falling into place, or the dominoes are about to fall, we'll hop on the horn again and cry into each other's arms.
I was gonna say I would love to have you back on at the end when either we're both like, "Hey, it seems like we both took acid. This is working out so amazingly," or we're both like, "Goddamn Knicks."
No, I've seldom felt this optimistic about the Knicks. I think the last time I felt this optimistic was last summer, and then before that was the summer before that.
Every summer, you can talk yourself into this team.
Yeah.
No, but I agree with you. I am totally in the season of hope right now. I really think big things are going to happen because at some point it's got to turn around. So, and it'd be kind of like, as much as I would rather have a young player like a Zion who we develop, and I'd rather have like a Zion who you develop and win a title that way. I'm fine at this point with a hired assassin. I don't care. I just want to contend.
I know. I'm in the same boat, and I do think that if Dolan ends up selling the team to Bezos or whomever, I predict like 9 straight Knicks championships, like immediately thereafter. That's my other hot take.
Yeah, no, they would.
They're going off on like a Celtics level dynasty.
Yeah, somehow they tie in like when the Knicks win, you get like 10% off on Prime or something. I don't know. It would somehow it would. At some point in the not too distant future, Bezos will own the team. We'll all become actual Amazon slaves, and we'll all be fine with it as long as the Knicks keep winning.
No, that's a hot take.
Yeah,
I love it.
So, Jay, anything else you want to add?
No, I think we covered everything. Is there anything, any projects you're working on you want to plug, Jim?
Oh, they're all top secret.
Okay.
They'll be known in due time.
Okay.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. I missed hearing your dulcet tones, and always a blast hanging out with you guys. So let's do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. We will. We will definitely. We will have you on once the chips have settled. We know where everything is going on. What happens this offseason. Thanks again, and it was a pleasure.
Likewise. Hope to talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Talk to
Take
you
care.
soon. Bye.
By the